Adventure Ho, Lumineers, and welcome back to another episode of Ducktail Dads. This is Ryan, joined as always by Mac and Nathaniel. Maybe not always, but most commonly by Mac and Nathaniel. We have a very special and very exciting episode for you all today. Set Championships started, fellas. It happened. The first weekend happened. It feels like it was just yesterday. We were at pre-release. First weekend of Set Championships in the book. Lots to talk about from that. DLC. There's a DLC this weekend. We get to talk about that. But we also have an anniversary event coming up. Wanted to announce that before we dive into what's new in your world. Just the date is the August 22nd and 23rd for the third annual anniversary event for the Minnesota Lorcana community. You don't have to be from Minnesota to show up. So please, if you're thinking about it and you're from the surrounding areas, then please, by all means, come join us. It's a great time. It was a blast last year. I'm sure it's going to be just as much fun this year. And that'll be at Game Center with a Z, Game Center with a Z in Roseville, Minnesota. So plug that into your Google Maps or your Apple Maps, no judgment here, and find your way to Game Center on August 22nd and 23rd. And now let's get into our new updates. Mac, what's new in your world?
A lot non-Lorcana related happening, ironically, as it's the first weekend of Set Champs. I did not participate. Two of my best high school friends and I, we went up to one of their cabins and we just hung out and played board games and went pontooning on the lake and did some bonfiring. Like we had a good time of just like getting away from everything. We kind of do this thing once a year. Sometimes it happens once every other year, but it's always a good time to get up north. And if for those of you who don't know, the northern Minnesota scene, it's just forests, lakes, and clear skies, really, and just really bumming out and doing nothing. And that's kind of my favorite thing to do of all time, is just exactly that. So we had a blast, catching up and playing, like I said, various board games. I have not got to a bite on the Lorcana, but we do. These are the guys that originally got me into board gaming, which eventually led me to my love of Lorcana. So I owe a lot of where I am today to them when it comes from a gaming perspective. However, when we weren't gaming, I was able to catch up on the DLC results in Dortmund. I have some thoughts, and we'll get into it later in the show, but that is kind of my Lorcana update, was just following a little bit of Dortmund. I do really, really, really like Infinity. I think it's a lot of fun. There needs to be some tweaks, though, and that's where we'll get into it. But I think it's something that has been a fun breath of fresh air from a DLC scene to see that as the main stage. And I'm excited for it and hoping that it continues and Ravensburger continues to at least make it known and, set this standard that, yes, we're going to have Core Constructed as the kind of the front runner, which it should be, but let's not forget about Infinity. It's just as important. And I know a lot of the community like it too. So overall, the DLC was fun. But yeah, that's new in my world. So now I'm going to pass it to Nathaniel. What about you?
Completely agree with that point too, by the way, Mac, about keeping both options very much supported. I think they both have a very important place in this game between Core Constructed and Infinity. But my weekend was much more focused on Constructed, as I was able to attend a Set Champs. It was very fun. It was at the store closest to my house, so that was really awesome. And it was the first time I've been able to play a Set Champs on opening day of Set Champs in a very long time. So there's a certain kind of buzz to that, I think, right? When it's the very first day of opening weekend for Set Champs, just like we kind of have with like pre-release, right? So that was really awesome. I did fairly well, so that was also cool. And then on the personal front, as Mac alluded to, with just Minnesota, the northern part being just forests and lakes, I got to take my oldest out fishing, and for the first time in his life, he caught a fish like solo, right? Like the only thing I did was I helped him cast out like from the boat to make sure his line was like not right next to the boat. But then I just handed the rod to him and said, like, you got this, like I'm not gonna do anything. And seeing him battle a crappie and reel it in and then have it up was definitely one of those like mountaintop moments as a dad. It was just so cool. And then, hilariously, we got back to the dock, and we saw this enormous bass jump out of the water. And he was like, how cool would it be if I caught that? And we were like, if that goes on your line, your little Spider-Man fishing pole is definitely not surviving. But he did end up catching a fish from the dock as well, which was like a really huge like sunfish. And he was just over the moon. So both times, right, like he did the whole thing himself outside of just that initial cast to get the line out. So I was thrilled for him. That was super fun to watch, and just see him grow and see him love it. So afterwards he was like, I want to go at least once per week. So an upcoming update from me on the personal front might be that I might have a fishing boat in my future here in the next few months. Who knows? But yeah, really, really solid weekend. Like a great opportunity to play this game that we love, and also get to spend some really good quality time with the fam as well, especially on something that I also am passionate about. I do really enjoy fishing, so seeing my son also really enjoy it, super cool. Ryan, what's new in your world?
Yeah, so personal front, we spent the weekend at my in-laws. We went down and saw them. It was fun to hang out with them again. We went for one of my wife's cousins got married this weekend, so it was out on a farm. So it was a beautiful venue that they had set up on their property. They have a very well manicured area around their home, and they put up this massive tent, and they had a dance floor, they had a DJ. One of their machine sheds was cleaned out and opened up for us to get food and snacks and cake inside of, drinks for kids of all ages from 2 to 102. It was a blast, and it's really fun now going with the kiddos to see them just run around like crazy and reminisce a little bit about how I felt when I was their age at those type of events. I'm just going to find other people my age and then just make new friends if I don't know them yet, and just play make believe with whatever is around, whether it's crab apples off of a tree or sticks in the ground or whatever else may be around. It was really, really a blast to also take a load off and just not enforce a bedtime for them, which a little bit came back to bite us on the next day when they were up at the normal time despite going to bed much later than usual, and we were all very tired. But so it goes. And now we're back in the middle of the week. So on the way back, my Lorcana update, on the way back, we didn't really play much, so we decided that we just wanted to get a couple packs on the way back. So we stopped by to pick up our grocery order from the local Target, and my wife ran inside to use the restroom quick. Had I gone inside, I would have grabbed just a couple of packs, but she decided that she wanted to open a couple more than 2 packs, so she ended up picking up a trove. And we ended up opening the trove, and my biggest update from the weekend is that in that trove, we pulled the iconic Buzz Lightyear. It was incredible. The screams that were screamed.
Gosh. No way.
Look at that guy.
My gosh. That never ends.
No way, Ryan. What? Okay,
Yeah.
What's happening with this Buzz then? What are we doing? Are we sending it in to get graded? Are we holding on to it? Are we selling it? What's the deal?
Had all these thoughts in the last 24 hours because it was dinner time yesterday that we pulled it. The funniest part was when I opened it, Steph's like, "Oh, nice, an epic," and then she's like, "Wait, that's more than an epic. There's more to that. That must be an enchanted." And then I explained it to her later, "This is the iconic," and she's like, "Wait, what? I thought that was not that." And then she apologized for her reaction being slightly blunted. But yeah, this was incredible. We screamed so loud we terrified our infant because I didn't think I'd ever hold one in my hands. But yeah,
gosh.
So it's in a semi-rigid. I'm planning on sending it in, get it graded, see how that goes. Hopefully it grades well, and I can either keep it in the personal collection or flip it for a lot more spending money. Maybe take a trip to Disney World or something on the back of that. But just incredible, right? Never thought I would ever hold an iconic in my hand, let alone the Buzz Lightyear that just went to infinity and beyond in terms of value and pricing. So that was my biggest Lorcana update for the weekend.
I'm speechless.
Me
That's
too.
absolutely insane. This card is going to the moon right now. It's one of the biggest cards in the game, and it's only gonna be hyped up more because Toy Story 5 is right on the horizon. Ryan, this is incredible. I'm actually surprised. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised you kept this from us, because breaking it to us now is very much that's definitely the move. Dude, congrats. That's an unbelievable pull.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm
and I will
absolutely
continue to
shocked,
say
yeah.
that I need your significant other to pick all of my booster boxes from now on, because that pack luck and I don't know, it's unreal. You've pulled 3 enchanteds last set, and I don't know if you pulled one this one. You probably did. I don't know. And now the iconics just Congratulations, that's awesome. Yeah, so to Nathaniel's point, like, this is the first we're hearing of it. So I don't know what to say, but that's totally cool and awesome, and I can't wait to see it in person. That's kind of my first reaction is, oh my gosh, I don't even want to touch it, I don't think. I just want to look at it. So
yeah, man. I don't know. You might not ever get to see it in person, unfortunately, if we send it off and it gets picked up for a good price from somebody. It's gonna be hard to say no to that, right?
Yeah, I guess I understand that. But if it does happen to be still in your possession, you'll have to bring it to the next friend hangout just so we can all gaze upon its glory for sure.
100%. Well, should we move into set championships then? Nathaniel, would you like to regale us with how your event went on Saturday?
I'd be happy to. So, I think one thing, before I talk about the experience, I remember towards the end of the last set, right? So during Winter Spell, I had talked about how I was really trying to focus on having fun, especially with set champs. I can still be competitive, I can still play a good deck, but like the priority here should not be like I have to advance really far. It should just be like, let's have fun with this, play a deck I like playing, and if it does well, it does well. And I did that with the second one that I went to last set, and I played Yurple, and it was super fun, and I had a good time, right? And last set I was really close, so I got third place and second place respectively in the set champs I was at to being able to get a playmat. And I think we've talked about this at length, right? If you go into every set champs you play in expecting to get a playmat, that's a tough thing to execute, right? Like you have to get some matchup luck probably along the way, and it's even the best players can't win every single tournament they enter, right? So I went in and said, look, I'm going to play a deck I like that I also think is strong, which is what we affectionately refer to as Yurple. So Amber, Amethyst, which you guys can intervene here if you think I'm wrong on this, but I think the independent strongest colors in core constructed right now are Amber and Amethyst. So it's kind of like what we used to maybe say like in the past, like maybe pre-rotation, like independent of the color, like the ink combinations. You could have made the argument that Amethyst and Steel were like two of the better ink colors. So like Amethyst Steel should be good, right? And it was kind of always floating like maybe around there. But there were other ink colors I think that would tend to overshadow it, like Ruby Sapphire, Amber Steel, like with Steel Song, right? But anyways, I felt like this was a good one. It's got some fun stuff. And we got our glorious chipmunk Dale, otherwise known as Dale, this set to kind of do some pretty busted things as far as Amber Amethyst goes. So for those who are not aware, Dale is the legendary that was released this set, and I don't have him pulled up, but he is a 4-cost inkable 0/4 with text that reads, when during challenges your characters use their willpower stat instead of their strength stat, right? So like if you have a 0/3 Will-O-the-Wisp, it will, during a challenge with Dale on the field, it would hit for 3 damage would be dealt to your opponent's character, whether you're challenging or they're challenging. So you can kind of see where that's going, especially when you can like force exert their stuff and then, start hitting their guys, make positive trades. Talking about a 0/3 1-cost hitting for 3, that's amazing. And a 1/4 1-cost, illusion character hitting for 4 is absolutely unbelievable. So before I get into like the matchups, I do also want to make one note. I have very much leaned into the fact that I am a net decker, right? I'm not the best deck builder. It's never really been a strength of mine. It's something I certainly want to work on and get better at. This was the first time I think I did make some executive decisions. Part of them were forced upon me because I didn't want to go buy cards. And part of them were just based on me making some decisions based on what I thought would be good. So I'll get into what that is. So I think a lot of the Yurple or Amber Amethyst decks are it's a similar general list of cards, right? You're going to be playing things like Elsa and Genie and the tree, Willow. And then there's some dealer's choice as far as some of those other cards. Well, the cards that I actually swapped in that I thought were going to be really good were, instead of playing Madam Mim Elephant, which a lot of people were playing because you can bounce back your cats, you can do some more damage movement with her, right? Like she's a really big body, like 3/7, right? And if you have Dale out, she's hitting for 7. That's unbelievable, right? So that was one card that was in the list that I was kind of reviewing and sort of basing my deck off of that I decided to opt out of. Another one was Ohana Means Family. Very popular card, I think, in a lot of the Yurple lists because of the fact that it's so strong. You got some high willpower characters. You can have Dale on the field, take out one of their guys, heal your guy. It's kind of like that Rapunzel play, right? And you can draw a ton of cards off that, so very popular. I don't own that card, so I was like, we'll figure out a replacement for that. The other decision that I made was around the 1-cost slot. So instead of running Eilonwy, which is pretty popular in some of these lists and can be very good, especially if you don't see Dale to threaten your little guys hitting for more damage, I opted for a 4 of the Palace Guard Illusion instead. So my 1-cost slot was Will-o'-the-Wisp and the Palace Guard, both big enough where, like, even without Dale, you can kind of cheat at least like 1 quest out of them, usually, especially on the play. And then if Dale's on the field, they're like extremely good cards now. So the other card that I subbed in was Nakoma. Mac loves this card. 4/6, 4-cost, vanilla. So some people don't really like vanilla cards, right? Like especially in some of those higher slots, right? But I had a 2 of Nakoma, and she was very good. And she was there for primarily, hopefully, against like the steel matchups, because she can't get zapped by things like He Hurled His Thunderbolt or an early Strength of a Raging Fire. So that was in my 4-cost slot instead of the Elephant. And then instead of Ohana, I actually just ran a couple Dumbos. And it's weird because Dumbo seems like he's still really good, but like right now, maybe it's not like the best time for him in some of these decks, including Yurple. I don't think a lot of people are necessarily running. But I was like, hey, look, more evasives, it can get even more value off of Elsa and Genie. That's cool. So I did that instead. So I basically, if you want to give me credit for it, you could say I swapped in 8 cards. So it's a step in the right direction for me. Otherwise, it was mostly kind of like your standard stuff, like guidebooks and the tree and Genies, Elsas,
yeah, you
Demonas,
really tinkered
Hades.
a lot there by changing up your meta deck to be even slightly adjacent meta, right? Just swapping in different meta cards into the current meta deck that you had. Nice job. Hey, it's a step.
Exactly.
It's a step, right? Baby step.
It's a step. It's a baby step. Instead of going like 59 of the 60 or 60 of the 60 that I find online, it was 52 out of 60. So those are some of the decisions that I made. They did have a small impact, nothing too huge. If you're only swapping out that many cards, it's not going to have a huge change. But yeah, there were 19 players at the set champs, so we knew it would be 5 rounds, cut to top 8, so it would be a little bit of a lengthier set championships. And my first round opponent was on Ruby Amber Toys, and I was like, oh, I love that list, right? Like I've been shouting from the rooftops that I think that is the funnest toys deck out there right now. Maybe it's not quite as strong as like some of the maybe like yellow-green, aka amber emerald toy lists that can do some other unfair things like Sing Under the Sea, right? All that fun stuff. But Ruby Amber Toys, really cool, very synergistic deck, and they just layer in like maybe a couple small things like they've got some Horseman Strikes, Headless Horseman, the 5-cost uninkable legendary, and like a couple other things, but it's largely a very heavy toy deck. So I was able to take that. It was pretty close for both games, especially when they start getting Rexes out. So Rex is that bodyguard, 2-cost, 3/1. If he's banished on your opponent's turn, banished at all, mind you, not just in a challenge. If he's banished on your opponent's turn, you gain a lore. So he's kind of like that Baloo Van Brunwald or whatever from the past, where if he gets banished on your opponent's turn, you still get the lore. And the difference here is that Rex swings for 3, so if they're doing it via challenge, they're kind of taking a lot of damage back to get rid of him, and you're getting the lore bonus, so it's kind of a nice card. It's amazing when you have something like a Woody out and Woody quests. So when your new set 12 legendary Woody, the 5-cost uninkable shift 3, quests for 2, you get to draw a card, you get to play this 2-cost for free, and if you play the Rex, it's like now you're protecting your Woody and threatening even more lore when they have to swing through that Woody. So it was really fun, just really fun games there. I was able to take that one. And then the next round, I played someone who had a bye because we had 19 people. I played the person who had a bye, so they hadn't actually played a game yet. And the second round, they were on Emerald Steel. And I think I want to talk about this one because Emerald Steel really hasn't been around for a while. I would say probably since like set 6, guys. And then really a lot of people went away for it. I think as far as like discard and some of that stuff, I think in pre-rotation it was largely going towards Emerald Amethyst instead of Emerald Steel, or even like Emerald Amber would be kind of taking the primary role, I think, in that space, and Emerald Steel sort of went away, and I don't think it's ever really come to the forefront ever since rotation happened. So it's been quite a while, I think, since Emerald Steel really got its time in the sun, and I think a large part of that is lack of card draw with those two, unless you somehow maybe you're doing like Clarabelle things, ? I don't know. I'm not an Emerald Steel player. I would never be an Emerald Steel player. That's a joke because I was. So I played that. There were some really cool like interactions there too with just like damage things. So like my opponent cheated out the 9 cost Robin Hood, where like it's like for every damage on the field you could pay 1 less. So I think she ended up paying like 4 for this 9 cost Robin Hood. 6/6 quest for 4. Just my goodness. If I don't have Dale, I'm probably gonna get crushed by this thing. So that was scary. But was able to get through that, and then played Sapphire Steel, Mac's second true love, not one true love, but second love, in round 3. That was extremely close, and that was, the thing I think often we'll see like in that particular deck that is scary for me is that they usually run pretty low to the ground. So it kind of makes me never want to play a Demona because I don't want to give them all that top end fuel. So having cards like Dumbo, very massive in that matchup, right? Because I can't swing in with my little weenie guys, even if they have 4 willpower, into these gigantic Sapphire Steel characters to get the damage to play Ohana. So that was when the Dumbo decision actually mattered for me, because I was able to maybe get some other guys out that soaked up some of the removal when their hand dwindled down, get Dumbo out, start exerting some of my evasive guys, get just enough fuel where it was just too many guys on the field for the Sapphire Steel to remove all of them. Because usually in that matchup, right, if you're Sapphire Steel, generally you're going to be playing catch-up. So if I can just get up the early lore and then just keep adding more fuel onto the field, there's just too many threats to worry about. I'm asking too many questions, and hopefully they don't have enough answers to those. So squeaked that one out 2-1, and I was 3-0, and I thought, hey, look, 3-0. You can usually, if you want to do this, I'm not condoning any of this, if you don't want to do this, you can intentional draw at that point in rounds 4 and 5, and you will have enough points to your name to be guaranteed a top 8 spot and get your foil Woody. That's ultimately the primary goal, I think, for all 3 of us, is just you want to get the foil promo card because they're beautiful, and hopefully they're worth something. Maybe that's really cool if they are. More on that in a second. But I thought, hey, I'll probably just ID now. And I was not able to intentional draw because I got the pair down into a 2-1. So I said, oh, yep, we got to play this out. And it was a Ruby Steel locations, and what a cool, like, again, we had talked a set ago about like prepare for these decks, and there was everything at this set champs, right? I just talked about Emerald Steel. There was Ruby Amber Toys, which of course that's like a little bit more meta than I think than like an Emerald Steel in today's world, but like Ruby Steel locations, this player ended up going 3-2 and making top 8. It can definitely punish decks, and honestly, if I hadn't seen Dale, I think I'd just lose, particularly on the draw, right? Because I just don't have enough guys to swing into these 4 and 5 willpower locations, especially if my opponent gets the John Silver down and he starts questing for 3, 5, 6, because there's all these locations. So that actually would have been really scary without Dale, my wonderful chipmunk, which I was fortunate enough to see in both of those games. So I got through that and then knew I could just draw and get into top 8, and I ended up being the 1 seed. So that was really cool. Now, I want to take a break here to talk about this because it seems like this is often going back and forth. I think what we've experienced a lot during top cuts at set championships is both players roll their dice, and whoever gets the high roll or whatever you choose, that person will go first, right? It seems like sometimes the rules state that it's that way. It's up to the store's discretion, or high seed goes first. So I had asked actually this person kind of running the event, like, what's the guidance on this? Because they had actually in the past they'd done both, depending on which set championships it was, right? So depending on where it fell, kind of in the sequence of the rules and what they were kind of expected to do, blah blah blah, all those things, fun. But they had said, I'll look it up and then we'll get back to you on kind of what we end up deciding to do. And they said, we're going to do high seed. So it actually worked out really well for me that I was the 1 seed, because that meant I was always going to be able to have the option to go on the play. I say the option kind of slightly tongue-in-cheek because in today's Lorcana, it's like you're almost always, like 99% of the time, you're going to be like, yeah, I want to go first. But so yeah, that was really good for me. So I saw the Ruby Amber player in top 8, and then I saw that so the way that set champs works, right, it's a bracket, and so if you win who you will play. So if you're the 1 seed, you're playing the 8 seed, you will play the winner of 4-5, right? It's not going to be like you play the lowest remaining seed, it's like, nope, you're going to play the winner of 4-5. And I looked over and I saw the people playing next to me in the 4-5 matchup, and it was Dogs against Emerald Sapphire. So blue-green against Dogs. And I was like, ooh, I don't think those are very good matchups for me. I'm not tech for dogs, and blue-green can do some really mean stuff. Ryan,
in the
what's
past,
up?
when we've talked about that, and I've asked you the question of like, what do you do if you see dogs are blue-green? You've jokingly said, I don't know, man. It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna lose those matchups anyways. So you were just mailing it in on those, and that's incredible that you saw them next to you, because I'm sure this like sense of doom washed over you. Like, it doesn't even matter if I win this.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like I was like, oh no, right? Like, I don't think those are very positive matchups. I really don't think the dogs one is, especially given the fact that, like, I didn't have some specific, like, things to try to slow dogs down, like Vanderchill and Tiggers and, you know, ways to effectively deal with, like, a Chromicon if it came down, right? Like, it was just like, oh no, I might just like, lose. So hopefully I just avoid those players, and here I am looking over and like, oh, there's like a 50-50 chance I just like see that in top 4, and that's going to be rough for me. Well, the player that was on blue-green or emerald sapphire was Ernie, and I got to kind of see just how good, like, I've talked about this in the past before, like, you gotta look to find your style of play, and seeing someone who's really good at coming up with answers or being the control deck that's like coming from behind, work through the decisions turn by turn. It was Ernie probably doesn't need this ego boost, but wow, it was like an artist at work watching him try to solve the dogs problem, because it's not really a great matchup for blue-green, right? Like, they can usually go so fast and so wide so quickly, while the blue-green player is trying to, like, get their very specific answer to that very hard question. They can usually just, like, eke out enough lore, it's, like, over before it ever really started, it feels like. And Ernie was able to do the thing and lock the dogs player out, and he won. So it was like, okay, I got to play Ernie. I have been figuratively beating my head into a wall for 2 years, figuring out how can I possibly beat Ernie, and now he's playing blue-green, and I'm like, oh, gosh, Ink Geyser is the bane of my existence. So I played Ernie in top 4, and I was able to ultimately eke it out. And the only thing I want to share about it is, well, there's 2 things. The first is, this was the one time I think in the tournament where I did feel myself like really tightening up, and I think it's because it's like I've built it up in my head, right? Like, have you ever like looked up to someone and you like finally get to like play against them? Like, maybe it was a sport, right? And there's a kid from their school that's like super good, and like, oh, now you're gonna play against that person. And like, Ernie has been such an integral part in my Lorcana journey, whether it's giving me deck lists, giving some advice on coaching. I mean, he was the person who told me during set 6, you know, coming up on, oh my gosh, you guys, is that 2 years ago now almost? Anyways, 1 year ago, right? Yeah. Anyways, he's the one who like had said to me, like, you need to figure out based on what your opponent's playing, like what your role is, right? Like, are you the more control-y deck that's gonna have to like contain them and come back, or are you like the more, it's like, I think the magic term is like the beatdown, where like you're the more aggressive deck trying to like eke out the early lore and try to like build up enough of a lead so like they can't do the catch-up thing, right? Like, sort of decide early what your role is, and that will dictate a lot of times like your decisions, starting with the altering phase, what cards you're inking, what cards you're prioritizing, right? Like, that all changes based on some of those roles. Which is also why, like, after game 1 and you know what your opponent's playing, it's very important to like understand that role, because it will impact like your altered decisions, or your mulligan, we sometimes call it. So Ernie's been such a huge part. So I think I really built it up in my head, and I was really nervous. Like, I was like clenching up, like, oh my gosh, to the point where in game 3, when Ernie like just like reached his hand across the table to like, and he said, good game, I was just like, are you serious? Like, I couldn't fathom that this was happening. Like, it didn't like compute in my brain. Like, this, like, I can't beat him, right? Like, almost like a wall I couldn't climb. And so it was almost just like a moment of like sheer disbelief that this has actually happened. So I just want to say shouts to Ernie. He's an unbelievable player, and I just appreciate him so much for what he's done for my Lorcana experience and my journey playing this game, and always being a sounding board for me, keeping me humble too, right? But like, I think it's just been, it was such a big moment for me, just like personally, to be able to like finally compete with him, it felt like. So that was a really cool feeling. So that was probably the highlight of my experience, and I was able to walk away with the mat. So that, I mean, from a prizing perspective, I didn't tell you guys kind of all the like what I was able to come out with from this, because it felt like I got a treasure trove of stuff. So I got 4 packs for my 4 wins. They didn't do pack per entry, they just did pack per win, which the entry fee was $20 for this, so that felt great. I got the steel pin as my like elective item they had all sorts of really great promo material. That was super cool. We will get the participation promo, the foil promo, and then ultimately the mat. So like I felt like, oh my goodness, like I couldn't have walked away with like a better haul outside of maybe like an iconic buzz, maybe. Ryan.
Yeah, that might be the only way to kind of surmount or surpass what you came home with. Two statements. First statement, you mentioned how much Ernie has done for you personally, but just in general for the Minnesota Lorcana community, Ernie has been a pillar, a staple, a cornerstone, whatever term you want to use to define it. He has been integral in growing at the initial outset of the game, and then also maintaining that growth by keeping people interested, running events of his own, participating in it feels like every single event, every single day that there is an event, Ernie is at something with either alone or with his family, or one or multiple parts of his family, and just like kudos to Ernie for being an incredible human and an incredible Lorcana player. So that's the first statement. Second statement, have you opened those 4 packs yet, and was there anything inside of them that you'd like to share with us? Are you hiding a secret as well?
I'm not hiding a secret. I opened them pretty quickly after the tournament, and I was under this like weird like what's the like little superstition, right? That like, oh, the Woody packs are the best. So I grabbed 4 Woody packs from the box that they had, and the best, actually in the first pack, it was the best card I ended up pulling, which I did pull a legendary Merida, so the steel one. So like that was cool, but nothing else other than that really to note. But that's a good pull. Like I'm happy if I could pull a very playable legendary from prize packs. And I've talked about this before too, right? Like usually by the time we get to set champs, you don't necessarily like need more cards for your collection. I haven't opened like a ton of wild, so like pulling a legendary actually felt really cool, especially one that like could very well be a very good card post rotation too in some of these steel decks. And as we know, I have liked steel in the past, not emerald steel ever, but amethyst steel. Maybe that makes its comeback. Just kidding, I've run both. But I think, that was cool to pull like a good card, because it does kind of stink if you like get like 4 or 5 packs from prizing and entry and whatever, and you don't pull like anything really that good. It's kind of like, oh, womp womp. But I was very happy with that.
It's my turn to ask Nathaniel questions about this now. First, the easy one. Your Sapphire Steel matchup. Was it the Princess version or was it the Allies version?
Allies. But he did have the Sonic Warrior in his list because he was able to do a lot of reach damage. It's really scary when that's online. If they sing any song, it's like one guy goes down and another guy's probably gonna go down. So like I was really waiting a long time in that matchup to play my Dumbo, knowing that if he has a song in his hand, he's for sure going to choose Dumbo with the aerial effect. So it was mostly allies. Like it had Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood, Shift Line from the new Vanilla 1-3. And that was actually one thing, like, I think we've talked about this before, where like sometimes the reps against certain decks can really matter. And I don't know that people are as familiar with Yurple. I think it's growing in popularity now. But like I was able to catch my opponent off guard with a turn 3 Dale after he had quested his small Robin and I had a Palace Guard out. So like that was able to essentially one-shot that because I put Dale on turn 3. So it's like your faux ramp, right? Like you wouldn't expect even with Dale out there that like, oh, they could play this on 3. But with the tree out on turn 2, that's Grandmother Willow, you can play your Dale on turn 3, and I was able to kind of catch him off guard. And I don't know that he even had the shift line, but he was like, oh yeah, I got to remember that. That's like he got punished for doing that. Because like the upright Robin makes me scared once he's on 3 ink, right? Because now he can crash into my stuff, gain 2 lore. Like that's like such good return on that like even when I then like crack back later, he draws a card. It's like, okay, if he removed like 2 of my guys, gained 2 lore and drew a card, that's like great return on your Robin Hood, right? So yeah, it's like thinking of some of those interactions that like could happen, right? So it was a great list. He was also he ended up having to play Ernie, I think, and I think maybe that was what ended up costing him getting into top 8. But that's a tough matchup, right? Like blue steel into blue green. I think that's really tough because they just have the board wipe and blue steel does not.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that unfortunate matchup, considering I ran into Ernie with that exact matchup last set. So my second question kind of has a little bit of build-up, and you mentioned teching in Dumbo or switching out Dumbo from that original list that we were looking at, and how like Dumbo's like a really good card, but it feels like, I don't know, people don't want to play it anymore or whatever for whatever reason. And I think it goes back to kind of like the broader season 2 mindset that I've come to understand is like fatigue and like seeing the same card type of fatigue, and Dumbo was kind of like the forefront of that when Fabled was dropped, right? And I wonder if that's part of the issue of why Dumbo is kind of had this weird stigma behind him now, that is now forever associated with Fabled. And we all know how some people have felt kind of 50-50 one way or the other when it comes to rotation and how that was executed. However, yes, Dumbo was a very, very good card, and but I was curious if that's kind of what the fatigue is. But on the flip side, I also want to include that for set 12, kind of getting out of that fatigue. And I think set 12 has provided a new breath of fresh air, specifically when you were talking about seeing all these different matchups like Ruby Steel, Sapphire Steel. You saw the Emerald or the Amber Ruby toys, and then you saw Ernie with his Emerald Sapphire. Like, you saw a lot of these different lists, and something that I've enjoyed playtesting primarily online, but just overall, like, I've seen a lot of these new lists as well, and I'm curious to get your perspective, as well as like the hype that set 12 was. Like, we're here, Pixar, it's amazing, like all these cars look really fun, all the new abilities seem really cool, like you can see a trend moving in a different direction that seems very, very exciting along with the Pixar cards. Did you feel that, like, you talked about like the first day buzz, the first day set champ, buzz, but what about like just overall excitement to play the game type of buzz that maybe has been lacking for the better part of season 2? Did you feel that change at all, or not quite yet? Any thoughts on that when you were there during your set champ run?
I think I certainly felt some buzz there. I think like this store usually limits, because of like it is a pretty small play area. They usually limit their set champs to like roughly 16 people. And so there was actually several people even more on top of that, like on a wait list. So like people really wanted to play. And so I think it was also cool to see that. And there was like a definite buzz here. I think the Pixar effect has definitely happened, and I think we'll get more on that here in just a moment. But like even like the variety that I saw, even like what was successful in the event itself was also super across the board, right? So there were 6 different ink combinations that made the top 8. There was the Ruby Amber toys, the Ruby Steel locations, Ernie on his blue-green, a Dogs list, an Amber Steel list, and then there were 3 Yurple lists or Amber Amethyst. So I was one of the Amber Amethyst lists, right? But seeing that was also really encouraging, because I've talked about in the past like romanticizing a little bit Reina Jafar to a degree, right, where it felt like it was this wider meta, lots of things could be successful. It was kind of like if you're really comfortable with something, you can probably do super well with it. This kind of has a little bit of that feel, I think. I do think Amber Amethyst is one of those very, very good decks, especially I think in our area it's really good. But I think lots of these lists could have won the whole thing, which feels really good, especially I think given the fact that like there is, I think, a little bit of Dogs fatigue happening right now. For sure, especially as we look at like some of the bigger events that are happening. That's very much a prevalent list there. No shade to Dogs players, right? I think it's just grown so much, and it's such an oppressive, can create non-games type of deck that I think we're in some ways looking forward to rotation, right? So I think that definitely like showed kind of the forefront. I think nothing better also exemplifies like the Pixar craze. And that part of this could be that Toy Story 5 is like right on the horizon for us as well in a couple of weeks. But the value of these cards is kind of bonkers. And it's not just the iconic buzz, right? So we are not here, disclaimer, to like give financial advice to anyone out there. But like the Woody foil promos were going for like $300+ this opening weekend, which it has been a very, very long time, I think, since a foil promo from Set Championships has gone for that type of return in terms of the secondary market. Even the non-foil cards were going for like $20 to $30 each, which is just so much more than any of these non-foil participation cards has gone for in the past. So I think that also shows some degree of like Pixar hype is very real. This is a very like big IP. Woody is a very important character, but also like they made the Set Champs card a playable card, and that matters in card games. So I think all around very, very positive, and I think they kind of crushed it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. And I just truly want to reiterate that. Like, playable cards for set champs are what people want to go to the store to do and win. We saw it with the Maleficent Dragon. I mean, and ironically, it wasn't Fabled where all this, chatter had started, but like everyone was excited to go win the Maleficent Dragon, right? And you have all of these cool playable cards. So, and I think we kind of predicted it once we realized, or once it was announced that the set 12 championship promo was going to be this Woody. We kind of anticipated that this would cause a lot more people to go to the store to try and earn their way to get one. But like these truly make a difference in how successful these set championships run, in my opinion. So I'm really glad you said that. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer, like opening weekend, you said it was $300+ I think it's worth saying to our audience that like even the Monday after that we're recording, that value has dropped a little bit. So again, just kind of like the financial advice, we're not giving financial advice, but we want people to be aware of it too, because we do talk about like these card values and how we as dads have to balance that as well. So just disclaimer for our audience here, but like still, like besides Rockstar Stitch, obviously, like I can't think of a set champs promo of recent memory that has been truly this highly valued, at least in opening weekend, which is huge. And I hope this is the trend that continues to happen for set championships, because I think it's truly important to get people to not only go to the store for set champs, but maybe go to the stores a week or two beforehand to get reps for set champs. So it's like, I think that's truly important for the sustainability of stores.
Very well said, Mac, that there's this sustainability piece that is kind of built into the value of that these for the set champs promo cards can provide. I also want to mention during this conversation that it seems like there's this like general rising tide in Lorcana as a whole right now, where lifting all boats in the sense that a lot of collectible cards, enchanteds, epics, legendaries, even the promo cards, iconics, obviously, we're seeing prices kind of spike a little bit, it seems, where all of a sudden I look the other way and then turn back and see that the price has like tripled on some of these cards. I just can't believe. Buyouts are happening at prices I wasn't expecting buyouts to happen at. Like, it seems like there's this general trend of more people coming into the hobby, either as players or as collectors, and that the quality of product that's been produced by Ravensburger, especially in recent memory with Winterspell, specifically Winterspell and Wilds Unknown, where we're seeing, and I guess Fable too to some degree as well, where we're seeing values of many of these collectible or high rarity cards really rise in price, which is pretty astonishing, and really makes it feel more worthwhile when you're going to these set champs events, and or you're going to events or opening packs and thinking like, hey, like I could pay for a box if we happen to get lucky and pull an enchanted here, or pay for 2 boxes if we get lucky and pull an enchanted here, or maybe I just sit on it and wait for the prices to go up when supply becomes more scarce, or there's other considerations to be had, and it's good. I think a positive thing for the game to have this type of effect happening, because I think it'll play a lot into the longevity of the trading card game of Lorcana. That we're seeing this like high quality be rewarded by many people trying to get their hands on these shiny cards or these princess cards or these high rarity cards to add to their collections.
Yeah, and I think a minor correlation to this too that I just thought of is the peaks of Lorcana in popularity were about this time now. So, and I would say into winter, as far back as like Winterspell, and even to a smaller extent Whispers, because Whispers had that insane list of legendaries that people were like, yes, the power is back. But like Winterspell and now, and then this time last year, set 6, 7, and 8. I wonder if there's a correlation with the pro scene and the number of pro scene events that have happened during those specific months. Like right now we're in the middle, we're going to get into it in a second, but DLC Dortmund just happened. DLC Indianapolis is happening in a week or two, right? During Winterspell, we had a number of DLCs as well. Obviously during Fabled, we had Milwaukee and the first one in Europe, which I don't remember it was, but it doesn't really matter right now. We see these spikes during when we see these major tournaments. And I think that's maybe not an exact one-to-one causation, but I think it's important that that when these events happen, I think it piques more interests, gets more eyes onto the game, and then people start thinking like, I wonder if that's a deck I want to run. So, hey, Set Championships is next weekend. Let's go try it out, So I think this is just, it could be another piece of evidence of continuing to invest in these higher level events to continue to have those peaks in interest, and not only of having current players really get involved, but I think those events are big events for people who have yet to ever been exposed to Lorcana, just kind of, be like, hey, there's a 2,000 person stream happening. What is this Lorcana game? So it's like, it gets more people into it. I don't know. I think it's interesting that we've seen a lot of the popularity of the game is kind of correlated to a lot of these major events from a DLC standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's really positive momentum, right? And I think, Mac, you had actually mentioned this in the past of like, I think some really fun stuff is ahead of us, especially with Pixar. And I think even when we had JDZ on the pod, he had like talked about like, I think the best of Lorcana is in like, we are about to enter this like golden era. And it does feel like the injection of Pixar and some hype here. I think the next big step to this is lots of like good events to go to. So both at a local level, can we pump up some of the weekly scene? Can we support both Constructed and Infinity? And then from the larger events, right? Like, can we have more DLCs as options to go to? We've talked at length about the fact that we were really spoiled, that they were like all Midwest-ish, spots. This most recent one, I just hope that there's lots of options the next time around, because it can be hard to get out to every one of those events, right, depending on how busy your own personal life is and things going on with your family. So I certainly would like to get to at least one next season. I hope that there's a good stock of choices, right, to be able to choose one or two that really fit the schedule. So it does feel like positive momentum certainly building, and I can only hope that we build on this when we rotate here in just one short month.
Yeah, and I think it's important. Should we just go into the big event that happened this last weekend in DLC Dortmund? Like, to our point that we're getting at is another one of those events happened, and some positive, and I will bring up a couple negatives with regards to this event. First and foremost, DLCs are happening. They're great. Congratulations. We had an Amethyst Emerald winner, which is huge. I know this specific deck combination caught a lot of fire in set 8 with all of the Diablo shenanigans, including their removal package with wrong lever and pull the lever from Emperor's New Groove. So and that was a popular list that was actually played at World Season 1. Ed Chu played this type of list with set 8 cards, not really the new cards, right? But obviously. So it was cool to see that deck list revived. And in the finals, it wasn't Dogs that it played against. It played against Amber Steel, the song variation, or one of the kind of two main song variations that we're seeing with Amber Steel. Yes, we have the one of old in The Whole New World, trying to refill your hand that way. But then with a lot of these boost, specifically the boost aerial, and when you sing a song, when this aerial has been boosted, draw a card, this deck seems to be finding newer ways to draw cards that don't also let your opponent draw a million cards and refilling their hand. That could potentially be detrimental, depending on your opponent, in The Whole New World, and that kind of the high risk, high reward value of The Whole New World. So the finals was amazing to watch and kind of watch that gameplay. My downside is, oh my gosh, this. If I haven't said it before the last couple of weeks, this is what is truly convincing me that Infinity going forward, there needs to be a ban list. And I'm no longer scared of the big bad B word. Like, Dogs is too powerful, and in a way it felt a little stale, which was what I was afraid of, kind of following the results. Like, one of the days, the Dogs, Amber Emerald, was 40% of the share of competitors, which is ridiculous. And the other days it was in like the high 20s or low 30s. The top 3 decks were Dogs, Ruby Sapphire, and Amber Steel, but even the other two around Dogs were nowhere in comparison. And then not only that, the conversion rate into day 2, dogs made an insane conversion rate into day 2. So like, and I think the top 16, half of them were dogs players. So I am so over this. Like, I'm so happy with Infinity. I love Infinity as an event, but because Infinity naturally brings in a sense of power creep that can be overwhelming, the only way, in my opinion, to get through that is to have a truly defined ban list. And that's kind of my rant, my soapbox. I will be kinder the rest of the show, but I am over it. Your thoughts?
Just for the sake of, fact checking, not to be mean or anything, but the participation rates, Amber Emerald for the Friday event was 22% of the field, and Amber Emerald for the Saturday event, because they did two separate events and then they came together for the grand finals, Amber Emerald was 17% of the field. That being said,
maybe it was the conversion rate I'm thinking of.
The conversion rate was stupid high. I don't have a number in front of me for that. I saw somewhere in the 30% range, which is just incredible. For any single ink color to have that high of a conversion rate is a sign or a clue that either, for some reason, if all the like most practiced and consistent players are playing the same ink color combination, there's probably something that they figured out either separately or collectively, or that the deck is just so foolproof and so consistent and so good that it allows for a broader range of skill levels to be able to compete at a very high level with that deck in hand. So I agree that I think there should be some tweaks, and I think the ban list should expand from what it currently is for the Infinity format. I don't want to see them just like chop off 20 cards, because that seems egregious, and Infinity is supposed to be this space where you can play all the cards or as many cards as possible, and it wanted to maintain that level of openness and playability. But that being said, when you print things like Willow in a color combination that also gets to play a card that decreases its cost for the number of characters you have in play, and you get to cheat out a bunch of characters really fast really early, and then that card also is effectively a filter for your deck, then it just, it gets out of control. And we're talking about the 7-cost tramp. I think that would be top of my list, because I think that brings a high level of, and we've talked about it before, a high level of consistency to a deck that like the one way you could potentially attack it is to burn out its resources. But if that deck is able to just pick and choose its resources at will from a deck of 60 cards, because they get to see 30 to 40 of them in a game, despite most of them ending up in the discard pile, that level of consistency is too high for a healthy competitive landscape. So as to allow themselves to continue to print strong cards in either Amber or Emerald to fit into that type of deck archetype, that like aggro-ish list, I just think that 7-cost tramp is something that would probably be on the chopping block to allow to allow the creativity to continue to flow in the sense of card design for Amber and Emerald ink colors, rather than effectively doing the Ruby thing where everything becomes uninkable now, and now you only get good uninkable cards and nothing of worth is inkable anymore. And that's what they've done in the last 4 sets, which I'm hopeful they'll trend back to the mean, or to the median, with the next set of 4 sets for Ruby, so Matt can get back on his favorite ink color ever.
I like that you said they'll trend back to the mean, because I didn't think about it as the math mean. I thought about it as like the makes you feel bad mean, because Ruby's just out here banishing people left and right. Yeah, I think well said, Ryan. I think there can definitely be room here for just a small ban list that would really open up the game considerably. Like I said, I'm a sap for the era where lots of things can be successful, and for what it's worth too, like seeing a color combination that I don't think has won a super huge event in quite some time was really, really cool. So props. I forget his name that won the tournament, but
Alessandro, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mac. For piloting, Amethyst, Emerald, I don't think that's a very easy deck list in its current construction to like necessarily pilot in Infinity, but I also wouldn't know that much because I haven't tested a lot of Infinity. But I think I am hopeful that this continues to get support and is received well. As we mentioned, right, like Indianapolis is so soon around the corner. It's just like a week and a half-ish, less than 2 weeks away. So I'm really hopeful that we see some decent variety there, and a wide field of like other things that do well would be amazing.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of Ryan's point, like I'm not calling for a whole like just chop off all the best cards. Like, and we already alluded to it in a previous episode of like there's like 4 or 5 here. Like it's a handful that are causing a problem. So that's something that I think needs to be looked at. But I mean, we have a lot of friends locally that are going to Indianapolis, so I'm going to be following that weekend and supporting them in any way I can. But there is some pause from me, to be honest, because in all of the mid-tier events that have been leading up to this, like these CCQs and whatnot, Europe was the one that was running all of the variety and all the fun, where we saw the Ruby Amethyst and we saw a variation of the items builds and a lot of these infinities. So you would think Dortmund in Europe would have a lot of this variety, and it turned out dogs just dominated. And it was the United States that all of these, bigger affinity events that had some prizing on the line, we saw a lot of dogs. So I am just preparing myself to see a lot more dogs in a DLC setting. Let's just say that. So I will always follow the game. That's something that I am super passionate about, and something that I'm going to support our friends that are traveling there locally. But like, it's knowing what we have seen or been seeing the trends over the last month or so. I'm just preparing for a lot of dogs. But who knows? It turns out we're not really good at predicting what's going to happen in any sort of meta, so maybe the United States field or the North American field will just totally surprise us, and it'll be something completely wacky. But it's just nice to see DLCs run in general. Last note I have, Alessandro, I think, yeah, his name, watching the finals, minor shout out to him. The way he shuffles his hand was completely therapeutic and mesmerizing. If you haven't seen it yet and watched the finals match, just take a look. And he is so efficient, and the way he shuffles his deck, that is just a talent in and of itself. But also, if I was going to be an opponent against him, that is something where I could be easily distracted against. So, but it was still really fun to watch, or at least I found entertainment in watching how efficient he was at shuffling his hand. So shout out him.
Let's go there, Mac. Let's start speculating. What do you think the meta share is going to be at DLC Indianapolis? Dogs over under 35%.
Ooh, good question. I think it doesn't help that dogs saw a lot of success in Europe, because what we have seen in the trends for the DLCs is Europe's first, and then the North American one happens after it, and we kind of see the response to that. I am still predicting a lot of dogs. I will say it will be less in terms of participation, but I wouldn't be surprised if that conversion rate then shoots up above that number like we saw in Europe, because North America is just a control field, or it has been with DLCs, and by nature, although it looks like an aggressive deck, that dogs list is more of a control feel, as we've alluded to before. Now, will we see the Ruby Sapphire Love come out in North America that we know our region tends to play? Who knows? But for almost the first time ever, which is weird, I have never been a Steel Song player and probably never will pick up that deck. But I am rooting for Steel Song. I think the new cards that have been added to Steel Song, especially that aerial, and we're seeing different ways of the card draw rather than just seeing Rapunzel or a whole new world. The card draw is way more unique in that deck, and it's fun to watch. So I am kind of low-key rooting for Steel Song, or at least the mid-range Steel Song with that aerial boost, because it's fun to watch. At least I enjoyed watching it.
I did also want to clarify, so we were talking about like the conversion thing here. I did just double check. So on Saturday, 8 of the top 16 were dogs. So I think when Mac says like we're seeing a lot of it, it's not necessarily like the percent of the overall like everyone. It's like if it's having tons of success, well, what's also then going to be streamed when we get to some of these, top cuts is a lot of this deck over and over and over again. And honestly, like, I don't know about you guys, but like watching a dog's mirror also, I'm just like, oh my goodness, I'm not entertained by that personally. It just kind of feels like a race for one specific card, and it's who's getting the Under the Sea first, and then you probably win, right? Not always, but you basically just win if you see that first in that matchup. So it doesn't feel like there's as much of like an exchange, right? Like between two players, like making like lots of decisions and like there's still strategy, but it's just like a strategy it feels very specific, right, in that matchup. And mirrors can tend to feel like that. I think I would be remiss not to call out that like that could happen back when we went to our DLC, right, and we were in Milwaukee. That could something somewhat similar could happen in like a purple steel mirror, right? The player on the play can sing strength first, and then the next turn they can sing their 4-cost song first, right? And like because I think that was when Heroeless Thunderbolt came out. I'm not sure, but either way, right? Like you got to like get their guys first and just like go too wide for them to be able to handle, sing their stuff down before they can ever really establish. And it brings me all the way back to a point that Christian said quite a while ago on the podcast, where you want your decisions to matter and not just feel like you're totally at the mercy of like what your opponent's doing. And sometimes decks will totally go crazy. They will, in terms that we've said before, like they'll hit the nuts. That can happen. But like if it feels like that's happening a lot, that's kind of a problem. And I think like you want to still have like some interesting mirrors, like right, like you want to have a mirror like me and Mac did the night before Infinity, and you spend 45 minutes on a single game and you're just constantly banishing all each other's guys because you're both running Ruby Sapphire, right? But like I think that's what I'm hopeful for too, is like whatever Infinity settles into, it's wide, and like whatever, if we have to watch mirrors, they're entertaining still too, because that is like a fun aspect, right, of a DLC, is the fact that like even if you're not there, you get to tune in and like watch these games from really high level players, and it's like you get to learn from them and just be entertained by them, and hopefully you're not kind of like, oh gosh, here we go again, because that's like a bummer, right?
Yeah, I think that's nail on the head there with the fact that you want to be able to tune in and be entertained, and that's the ultimate goal, to reach a wider audience as well, is to make sure that these are watchable programs, and hence why the hosts, Rebecca Quests and Baker Lorcana Villain, have been doing an amazing job with these DLCs that they've been hosting in North America and Europe, just making it easily watchable, making it entertaining for the audience, keeping gameplay on the screen as much as possible, sprinkling in plenty of fun and energy into the in-between times between games or between rounds, and just keeping it lighthearted and fun just in general. That's like, I keep saying that word, but it's that's the reason people play trading card games, right, is to have fun. And I think that's why I think that Lorcana has been doing great, and I hope to see that going forward as well. I will say I think dogs will be 33% of the meta. 33% of participants will be playing dogs at DLC Indianapolis. And if I'm wrong, I think a handful or a lion's share of the percentage that I am off will be Amber Steel players, because people really want to play their princesses and their songs, and they want to sing them and remove things from the board. And so I think that it'll be either dogs or Amber Steel. It'll be the highest represented deck. And then I think Ruby Sapphire and Ruby Amethyst, I think, will make a comeback as well, because I think North America really loves the Ruby Amethyst cards. And we probably will see some Emerald Amethyst, similar to what Alessandro ran, that'll find some success as well. Maybe not quite. I mean, it might be similar percentage participants as it was in Dortmund, in like the 5 to 7% range for the Emerald Amethyst decks. But I do think that we'll see those decks finding some success as well, because obviously there's a path forward for them, and they've seen the blueprint to get to the final and win the grand final. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to following along with DLC Indianapolis, especially because we know some of the people. So I'll be constantly hammering the refresh button on the Ravensburger Play Hub entry for those tournaments, just to see how the people that we know are doing, and follow along kind of in the live feed there as much as I can. And then hopefully we have a great story to talk about. Maybe we can have a new DLC champion from the local Minnesota area on our podcast to talk about their tournament run on the other side of the tournament.
Yes, please. That would be so cool to see that. Yeah, and I love that you had a shout out for the production team, Ryan, because I think that's key. Like, the Ravensburger production team has gotten so good, or like the stream team, the DLC team, like they're so entertaining, and they've really hit a groove on what they want to do. And especially since Worlds, I think they really, really kicked it up a notch and got it in gear when it comes to the production value overall. Like I said, I see some cons to it, but overall I've really enjoyed this Infinity season that it has been the last month. It's been really fun, and I'm happy to see and happy to know that kind of the capstone of that is the North American DLC, which is just a week and a half away. So shout out to all those from our local area. Good luck to you. I'm sure we'll shout you out again next week prior to your run to eventual champion. But this is as of right now, the first thing on the calendar until the North American and European championships. So enjoy it while we have it, because it's going to be a couple month pause until we're celebrating the next tier of competitive play, which is all the winners and top 32 participants of a 2,000 player field. So, very much looking forward to it still, but I can see, it's going to be so cool to see. Hopefully one of our friends is on the stream, and wouldn't that be awesome? Because we've seen our local champ, Scott Markinson, be on the stream before. I don't know if he's attending. Maybe he is for this one because he's already qualified for our North American champs, but maybe another one of our local champs will show up, and wouldn't that be cool to see? So I will definitely and always follow along.
And for those of you this upcoming weekend who are competing out there in your local set champs, best of luck to you. Hope that you definitely enjoy it, right? The Woody card is stunning. So whether it's the participation one, the promo, the foil promo, or both, hope that you get all that you're shooting for as far as the prizing goes. Don't forget, pack your snacks, plenty of water to drink. Make sure that you are taken care of in those aspects too, because it does get long, right? You're not just there for an hour. You're usually going to be there for anywhere between 3 and 6 or 7 or more. So hope that you all enjoy the time playing set champs as we close out Wilds, because it's been fast, as we've talked about before, but it is really, really fun, and Pixar's here, and we're just going to keep growing.
Love it. Everyone enjoy the set championships as they come up for you in your local area. Have fun, like Nathaniel said, just have fun with it. Play the decks you want to play. Everything seems competitive enough to be able to get you to that foil promo if that's your goal. So good luck. May your draws be ever in your favor. If you want to follow us along on other social media platforms, we're on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can follow along with the video of these podcasts on YouTube. That's where we post those, and feel free to drop a comment, leave a like, all those good things on whatever platform you're listening on, so we can continue to grow our podcast and keep going to infinity and beyond, as they say, in honor of Mr. Buzz Lightyear. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one. Let's get the duck out of here, fellas.